This week I'm going to answer a question from the What Have You Always Wanted to Know thread. This was posted by, I believe it's September 24th. And she asks, how did you start organizing the knitting retreat and how long have you been doing that? Well, this is going to take a while. I'm going to share a lot of information with you. So if you are thinking about hosting a knitting retreat or any kind of gathering like this where you get a bunch of people together, I'm going to give you some information about all of that. But how did I get started? Well, technically I started organizing scrapbooking retreats first. A number of years ago, a friend of mine, who is no longer a friend of mine, but she kept at me. She wanted to start a scrapbooking retreat. And I'm like, I think at the time I was going to school or I was just really busy. When before I started knitting, I taught aerobics and I worked full time, and I just was busy. I was at one point I was doing classes for Close to My Heart and Stampin' Up and what have you, and I just didn't think I had the time to organize a scrapbooking stamping retreat. But she was insistent. She's like, oh, we can do it, we can do it, we can do it. So I caved in and I said, okay, fine, I'll help you do it. So we got started doing that. And I think we did it for around 8 years. I think I did it with her for a few years, and then we parted as friends, and I continued my own retreat for a while. And then I kind of became a knitter. And I stopped scrapbooking, so the scrapbooking retreat stopped. Actually, I think the scrapbooking retreat stopped a little bit before I became a knitter. I kind of was burnt out on the scrapbooking retreats. But my scrapbooking retreats were a lot bigger than my knitting retreat, because my knitting retreat I kind of keep like a more intimate setting, and it's a smaller group of people, and it's a more casual atmosphere, I think, with the knitting retreat. So I did the scrapbooking retreat, so I kind of knew the lay of the land. So when I started knitting and decided, hey, let's do a knitting retreat, because who doesn't want to spend the weekend knitting with friends at a cabin, just having a good time. So I started the knitting retreat. And now I'm going to kind of give you a lay of the land on how to get started with a knitting retreat if you want to do that. Or like I said, any other kind of retreat. The first thing you need to do is find a location. That was my first thing anyway. When I thought about having a knitting retreat, I thought about having this nice cozy atmosphere with a fireplace, a beautiful view of a lake, something that you could just sit around and cozy up in your knitwear and knit and just enjoy your time with friends. And so that was my first step, was finding a location. Now, there are different types of locations. You can do it at a hotel, you can do it at a cabin, you can do it at a lodge. There's so many different things you can do. You just need to decide what you want your retreat to be. And for me, it was all about the atmosphere. And so I had a list of the things. Like I said, I wanted a beautiful view, I wanted a cozy atmosphere, I wanted a fireplace, I wanted the lodge to be big enough, or the cabin to be big enough to sleep a decent number of people. And I wanted good food. When we did scrapbooking retreats, we did them at like it was a Salvation Army kids camp, a kids summer camp. But in the wintertime, they allowed women's groups to come in and have retreats and whatnot. But the food was not that great. It was a cafeteria style food, and it was a kids camp, so the kitchen staff were used to making stuff for kids like hot dogs and chicken wings and stuff like that. And it was not really ladies, grown people food. Now, at one point, that place did have a better kitchen staff, and they did make special things for when ladies groups came in, but those last few years that we did it there, the food was just not that good. And you know what? It's all about the food sometimes. So, if you're not going to have good food, it kind of sets the scene for other things. So when I found that, I originally had my retreat out in Ludington, Michigan, which is on the west side of Michigan, and we did it in January. And it was snowing, and we were right on the lake and everything. But at the time, that was the only place I could find that had a minimal security deposit. Because honestly, when I started the retreat, I was not podcasting at that time. I had no idea how many people were going to want to come to this retreat. So I wanted it for just, about I think I had about 14 people there. And I didn't want to have to put a whole bunch of money down and then not have people show up, not have people want to sign up for the retreat. So I started it there, and then I just continued to search for a better location, and then eventually moved out to Lexington, which is actually closer to my house, and it worked out better for me. So after you have the location, you need to decide what kind of retreat are you going to have. Now, when I was doing scrapbooking retreats, we were doing them sometimes twice a year. And it was hard to get donations and prizes and stuff together in such a short period of time when you're doing them about every 6 months. So one retreat of the year we had as a no-frills retreat, where you just come, bring your project set up, you get your space, and there's no prizes, nothing, just time to scrapbook. And then there was the other time of year when we had prizes, door prizes, and goodie bags and whatnot that we would have and classes and whatnot. So there's two different kinds of retreats. You decide what you want to have, and then once you decide if you're going to have classes, then you decide, well, am I going to have big name teachers and spend lots of dollars to do that? Or am I going to have local teachers or participants from the retreat kind of share their own knowledge, which doesn't cost anything. Just, the people that are coming to the retreat, they offer, suggestions for little mini classes, or people who want to learn something say, hey, I want to learn this. And then people who are attending the retreat might know how to do it already. So they volunteer to teach a little segment, which is what we do at Knittopia. Usually we kind of put a call out to people and say, hey, is there anything people want to learn? And then somebody will volunteer to teach that particular class. Usually our classes are about an hour to an hour and a half at Knittopia. And there's learning all through the whole weekend and week and whatnot, because, people are showing other people things, and, there's constantly different little mini sessions going on all over the place. So, but hiring big name teachers costs a lot of money, which is going to raise the price of the retreat. And then again, the prizes and goodie bags and stuff, you need to contact vendors to see if they'd be willing to support you. You need to have a little bit of extra money from the retreat so that you can buy, swag and whatnot with the logo on it, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of things that go into the pre-planning of the retreat. Then you need to decide, are you going to have a vendor market? Now, we don't have a vendor market per se, but some of the people who come to Knittopia do make things and sell. They are allowed to bring their stuff to Knittopia and sell. But the cabin at Knittopia is kind of out of the way, not close to really anything, and it's off season, so it's not really an ideal situation to have vendors come in. Plus, at any given time at Knittopia, there's only 23 people there. Now, granted, 23 people can do a lot of damage at a vendor market, let me tell you. But it just hasn't seemed like the right thing to do at Knittopia. So we don't have a vendor market at Knittopia, but I know that a lot of the other retreats, the SSK and the Zombie Knitpocalypse and Knitting in the Mitten, they all have vendor markets. But it works for them. At Knittopia, I don't think that it works for us, but having the participants bring their own wares and sell them, I don't have a problem with that. That's fine. And a lot of them, sell a lot of stuff at the retreat as well. So you need to decide if you're going to have a vendor market, and if you are you going to have a place for them to set up? If you are in some kind of a cabin or lodge, is there going to be a space big enough to have vendors set up tables or booths or what have you? Or if you're at a hotel, are you going to have a separate room from wherever your group is meeting to set up a vendor market? That sort of thing. That's something to think about. Then you need to decide if you're going to allow people that live in the area to come for the day. If you have locals that may not be able to take time off of work to come to the retreat for the whole weekend, maybe they might want to come for the day. Sometimes that works. Again, sometimes that doesn't work. For Knittopia, I have had a few day trippers the last few years, but I kind of find it a little disruptive somewhat to the flow of what's been going on for the last couple days, because a new person comes in on Saturday and then you got to kind of orient them, and so it takes away from everything else that's going on. But for other retreats, it might work out just fine. So again, you have to decide if you're going to allow day trippers. And if you're having a marketplace, having day trippers might not be a bad idea, because then you might get more people to come in to shop at the market as well. Then after you figured out the location, decided what kind of retreat you're going to have, if it's going to be a no frills or if it's going to be prizes and what have you, then you need to decide on the cost. So after you have all of that other stuff figured out, then you need to decide how much you need to charge your participants for the retreat. This can go in so many different directions. I personally set my retreat price as low as I possibly can to still break even and cover expenses. It's not my goal to make a bunch of money off of a retreat. My goal is to go and have a fabulous time during the retreat. So again, I set my price as low as possible. I need to cover the cost of the rental for the cabin. I need to cover the cost of some other essentials that over the years I have started to take care of. At Knittopia, everybody volunteers for a specific part of a meal, and we all bring food in, so everybody's participating with that. Where I don't cater in food for Knittopia, everybody provides their own food. So, it's a group meal, but like for instance, we have a dinner one night, and there might be 3 or 4 people that are contributing to that meal. I do try and have a little bit of extra money for swag, like our bags with our logo on them, some other little things that we can buy with the Knittopia logo. Just things like that. Again, I don't want to charge so much that it makes it unattainable for most people, but I want to make sure that I at least break even. Now, there have been times when I have been running short on cash based on, how much was charged for the retreat, and then, spending for prizes or, supplies or what have you. And if that happens, a good way to supplement the cost of the retreat is by doing raffles. We have had, the last couple of years, we've had raffles. I usually try and get an item or two and put it up for raffle, and that will bring in a couple extra, a little bit of extra money for the retreat if the expenses are running high, or it will be left over for the next retreat if that's, what happens. But if you are running a little bit low on funds, that's a good way to make up the difference. A 50-50 drawing works also. Just whatever you can produce to get a little bit of income rolling back into the retreat fund to get you through to cover all those expenses. And I think that's about it. Retreats are great. If you have never been to a knitting retreat, I highly recommend it. Whether it's SSK or Zombie Knitpocalypse, Knitting in the Mitten, or the Knitting Pipeline Retreat, or Knittopia, or any of the other zillions of knitting retreats that are all over the country, I highly, highly recommend attending a knitting retreat. There's just nothing like it. It's just, I personally love Knittopia because of the atmosphere, because when we come to Knittopia on Thursday and everybody gets introduced that night, by the end of the weekend, we feel like we are a family. I mean, literally, I have formed lifelong friendships at Knittopia, and I wouldn't want it any other way. I really, really enjoy spending time with everybody through the retreat, and just getting to know everybody. I just feel like our size group it gives you a chance to really get to know everybody. Granted, other size groups, if you're going to a larger group that has over 100 people, you're probably not going to get to talk to everybody. But you have to understand that going in. I mean, you certainly can try to talk to everybody, but if you try to talk to everybody, you're not really going to get to know any of them. And I really enjoy really getting to know people at the retreat, and that's just the way I like it. I attend other retreats that are larger in size, but I feel like I can't really get to know everybody if I'm doing a retreat that is much larger. But that's just the way I feel. I can't wait to attend the Zombie Knitpocalypse next year, and obviously I've enjoyed Knitting the Mitten. I've gone the last 3 years, and it's gonna be fun. You get to meet so many people, and you get to sit and knit all weekend. What more could you ask for? So that's about it for the knitting retreats. If you have any other questions about hosting a knitting retreat or anything at all, just PM me or email me, what have you. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have and help you get started on hosting your own event.